First off, we have step number one, prepare. So we've printed off our mini dome parts. There's basically 4 pieces that we're going to paint. We have 2 of the pie panels here. We have the front of one of the domes and the back of the other dome. So all ready to rock and roll. Depending upon your actual print, you may have pieces you need to clean up. Fragments of parts that maybe marked off, like this one here has some pieces I need to peel off and get off of, just because the print itself had a few little stringy things on there. So you want to kind of clean up all the little stringy parts and clean up any pieces that are in here. You could do that using like a little dental pick, X-Acto knife or blade. Be careful if you're using this, this will cut you. Or just like some normal snips. So you want to go through, look for any stringy things, clean up any of those stringy pieces. There's one right there. Get those out of there. Get all those pieces off of the parts. Once you've cleaned up the parts and got everything into place, you now have to make a determination to sand or not to sand. So you probably have noticed that when you do a 3D print, you see those lines. You see those little lines right there at the very top of the dome? Yeah, you see those lines right there. You can get rid of those lines. That's going to take you some time and some effort. Now, that's up to you if you want to do it or not, but it will take some time to get rid of those lines. How I'd recommend doing it is with sandpaper. You're going to start with some 220 grit sandpaper. This is a fine finished sandpaper. I really don't recommend going much thicker than that, 160, 80. Those coarse ones can really dig in the plastic and cause more grooves, and you're really trying to remove those grooves. So you really want to use 220. How I would do this if I was sanding is I would put 220 grit and sand the whole dome. Take some cans of compressed air, blow everything off. You also could wash it if you want to. Washing, you have to make sure it's fully dry first. And then you apply some spray can primer to the actual part. So you can use different kinds of primer. Here's a can of primer right here that you could use. I'll go over what kind of primers you can use here in a second. But you'll spray that, and then you'll wait 24 hours, and then you'll sand again with 220. You'll continue that process. This could take days. But as you sand, you'll keep going higher on your grit of sandpaper until it's really fine. Like here's a 2000 grit sandpaper. It's a really fine sandpaper. This is going to give a really smooth look to the dome and take away those lines. This is your call. You can do whatever you want to with this, with the dome. But that is one thing, one method of being able to get it really smooth and looking really nice. If you can see the lines after you've put primer on the actual part, when you paint it for the final finished product, you will still see lines. So make sure that you're aware that that's what will be taking place. So maybe you don't want to sand, that's fine, completely up to you. If you decide not to sand, then you're like, okay, I just want to get some color on this and looking decent. Step number one is a base coat. So you'll take your parts outside or in a ventilated area. Make sure it's a ventilated area, please. And you will spray with some type of primer. Now, this is a Rust-Oleum primer. This is fillable and sandable primer here. I have other primers as well. Here's a flat gray primer. You kind of see there. I'll show on the screen here on the piece here. What you're looking for is anything that bonds the plastic. If it bonds the plastic with a rattle can, it's going to be just fine. So you're going to basically paint the entire thing with some primer. Okay, so how do we do that? So we take this outside, or we find a ventilated area, we put down some plastic or put the pieces on top of cardboard. If you're going to be outside in the ground, you want to make sure you put like a cardboard box down so you get elevated off of the ground so grass or nothing like that will get on it. Tips. So you want to be above 50 degrees temperature wise and below like 92, 96, something of that nature. Good ventilated area. One of the tips for painting is it's all about distance of the spray can from the actual part. So here's a spray can nozzle here. So I don't want to just go spray right there as close as I can to it. That'll leave a globby mark and just paint will run everywhere. So I want to be about 10 inches away. I'm not going to do this in my computer lab, by the way, but I'll be off the model and across. Hit off the model across, let go. Hit off the model or off the model, across, let go. So whenever you hit the button here to spray, make sure you're not directly on the actual model, because if you're on the model, it'll hit and you'll get paint splatters in places. This way to this is the best way to give you good, clean, clear marks across the dome. So that's my recommendation for applying your base coat there. It's also my recommendation for all rattle can, spray can kind of painting. Make sure you're off the model and go across. Sometimes you have to get in a place like inside these nozzles and hit a couple times. That's okay. You're not hurting anything. And if you get too much paint in a place, we can fix it. And I'll talk about that in a second. Once you have your base coat fully done, we now have a decision to make. What do I want this to look like? Well, you can do anything you want. You could paint it with some paint brushes and make it look any pretty. Any kind of acrylic paint from Walmart or Hobby Lobby is going to work just fine. Like here's some jet black. I think I got this from Walmart. Kind of zoom in here a little bit. Let's see a little better. There you go. So this is just some acrylic flat paint. Sorry if that's not coming through perfect, but you could do that. But what I'm going to show you in this video is how to paint it to simulate and look like R2-D2. Okay, so that's going to be my goal for this paint job. But you can do anything you want to and make it look any colors you want to. And I'll show you some examples of what those look like. So I'm going to kind of slide this guy over to the side for a second. I'm going to grab one of the domes that we finished here that looks a little bit like R2-D2. Hey, look at that. Now, none of the domes that I've worked on, I went through sanding and that process. So I didn't spend time making that happen, but you can if you want to. This is a two-step process. And so step number 3, step 2 was apply your base coat, primer. Step 3 is painting your first collar. Now that first collar for this robot here, this little dome here, probably a little hard to tell in the area here, is silver. So all of this is silver. It looks like a little silvery robot because R2-D2 is silver and blue. So we have two collars really to contend with here, silver and blue, and then detail collars like the black eyeball. So those are the two we're going to be kind of playing with here right now. So I take this whole model here, first original one, and I go, I think I knocked over R2-D2. R2-D2 is down. R2-D2 is down. Put him back up here. There you go. So I take this whole model here, I take it outside, and I spray paint the whole thing in some kind of metallic paint. Now, I'm going to use rattle can for what I'm doing. And so I'm a big fan of Rust-Oleum. Bonds the plastic really well. This is the metallic color, but you know, any color is going to be fine that you're using. As long as it bonds the plastic, it's going to work really well for you. So this is what I used for a lot of the ones I worked on. Once I apply my first paint color, I'm going to let it sit for 24 hours. And everything is going to be silver. Every single thing, everything here is going to be fully silver, okay? After I let that sit for 24 hours, I'm now going to go into step 4, which is detail taping. So to get these nice clean lines that we have, like right here, these clean lines, this is hard to do with a paintbrush. At least I can't do it. So these lines here and these lines here, it's really hard to get that detail that I want. So we're going to do some taping and masking of collars. So for example, here's the very back. This is a taped up guy here. This is the back part of the dome. We've taped off all the areas that are silver. All the areas we don't want any color on, we've taped off so we can paint other areas. And you'll see the lines are really clean here. See these lines? We've taped all this off. Now this does take a little bit of time to tape all of this off, and even the inside, you want to kind of cover up the holes so that paint doesn't go inside if you don't want it to. It's not going to hurt anything, but you're able to do that. Now for taping, I recommend a couple of different things. Painter's tape works just fine. If you have painter's tape, that's great. You could use some green frog tape from Lowe's or Home Depot. That works really well. If you go to Amazon, you can buy what's this stuff here called, this is called detail tape. You also can find this at Hobby Lobby. This is really thin tape because to get to some of these smaller lines that down through here, having a really thin tape like detail tape, man, that works really, really nice. Okay, so I recommend this. You can see we've used a lot of that. They're about that size, we've used this much. So that detail tape helps us get really clean marks that are really small, because if you got to get into small areas like this here, that's really hard to do with big frog tape like this. You got to cut a lot of that to make that happen. So Hobby Lobby sells this. You go to Amazon, type in detail tape, and you'll see a bunch of this really thin stuff. Really helps out a lot. Once you have fully taped off your dome, got everything taped off that you want, you're now going to paint it your secondary color. So let me see here. For example, if I was going to paint this one green, I would grab my green paint here and go to town. I'm going to paint the whole thing, not just individual parts. I'm going to paint the whole thing the same way that I painted the silver and the primer coat. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to go here, across. I'm going to go off the model, across, off the model, across, and I'm going to paint every single piece. The whole thing will look like it's the blue or green or whatever color you chose. Okay. It's critical here not to stay on an item. So you want to be off and across. Or before, we could fix this pretty easily, but if you hold it here to try to get just this piece, it'll run behind the tape. So kind of be off and across, be careful because it'll bleed. Now, if you want that bleed, because you want that to look distilled like that, that's your call. But I just want to let you be aware, you want to be kind of light on this. You don't want to be real heavy. Go light, wait 24 hours, do light again, and then get the color that you want. A couple coats, it's probably a good idea for this second coat process, okay? So once we've done that, we get the really fun process of ripping all the tape off. I'd wait 24 hours. You could do it really early on. You could get all the tape off, but it'll still be wet. The paint will still be wet on here within the next hour or so that you've painted it. So wait a little bit of time and you can pull all this off, making sure you're not touching any other pieces. And lo and behold, it'll look like this after you peel it all off. It's really, really cool. A couple other examples is, here's a Wedge Antilles version where we painted this whole thing red and then we taped off and painted silver. A little bit different look to it. Really, really cool. This is my buddy Jay Cahun's dome that he built that we painted for him. And then another dome that has a little bit of a unique look that everyone really, really likes is one of my lab assistants, Mr. Alex Bradshaw. He painted this guy, and you can see it's really distilled. It's got a lot of different collars on it, and he's like sanded it, and it looks really rough. It looks like a Star Wars robot. And everyone really likes it. I take this one to a lot of different places because it's really a different paint color look. It's the Boba Fett look on it. Really, really neat. And it's really funny when he did this. I was like, man, you got to repaint that thing. I said, no, this is what I was looking for. So that's a really, really cool paint job. So that's basically about it, except for we have a little bit of detail painting to do. R2's lens is normally black. You can do what you want. But you basically will use a paintbrush and paint this black using some acrylic paint from Hobby Lobby or Walmart or wherever you paint that black, okay? So then you can have the choice if you want to. This is completely up to you. I didn't do this, but you can also use a little bit of clear coat if you want to make everything look a little shinier. You can make a gloss clear coat, make everything look really shiny if you want to go that route as well. Wait 24 hours between all painting processes. That'll really help you out a lot and finish up that piece. So, well, hey guys, that's really it. That is the painting process for the STEM mini domes. I hope you learned a little bit about the process. And if you have fun painting your domes up, I will be putting out videos on the other processes of building the dome and also the coating process with different things that we'll do with it as well. All a part of our coating challenge for the Grant Emma Hart Foundation. So